Welcome to Command HQ. I am Brock. It is Thursday, June 30th, 2022. Agent X, how's it going out there?
It's going all right, man. Hanging in there, busy day. Kind of sidetracked from the news, but uh, Biden, Biden doing some saber rattling at the NATO summit, making the price of gas plummet. Or sorry, not the price of gas, making the price of these like the price of these oil stocks plummet. So Chevron, Exxon. I think he basically came out today and said, as long as there's a Ukrainian war, you're gonna pay higher gas prices. Um, Fucking nuts. You're starting to see uh, just. You're starting to see kind of, I think, some fracturing in this country. It'll be interesting, what we see over the weekend in terms of people complaining about gas prices. And I mean, I filled my Maserati up today, and it was $300, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think people are really starting to get sick and tired of the increase in prices. And at first it kind of seems like it could be temporary, but then you start to continue paying all these extraordinary fees, and you're just like, what's going on here? So um, people are really starting to get fed up. I think his poll numbers were kind of like gradually declining, but then about a week ago, you just saw them go straight down.
Yeah, it's he's really doing a poor job here, and you can see that the sides are lining up for war. There was a video that a guy did who like really went into a in-depth analysis talking about how the rhetoric for NATO is starting to you're starting to see it more and more frequently. You're starting to see like the sides lining up, particularly with Finland and Sweden being invited to join. Um, it's a pretty interesting video. I have to send it to him. Maybe we can go over it tomorrow. But yeah, what? Amazing. It's amazing.
Well, there's a bunch of other stories in the news, including the Supreme Court decision, West Virginia versus the EPA, that kneecaps the administrative state, and then we have a bunch of other kind of interesting stories about USC and UCLA departing the Pac-12 for the Big Ten. Now, we don't comment really on sports on this live stream, so it's not really about sports. It's rather about the politics. Are these universities trying to escape these COVID lockdowns in California? So trying to prevent being restricted in the future, or is it strictly primarily about money and some of these uh, college football networks like the Big Ten network that they're getting a piece of money from in order to go to the Big Ten? So really interesting stuff. Let's start
Hey, I
with,
just sent
yeah,
you the YouTube video of Biden talking about the gas prices. It's in the private chat.
let's play it.
Dude, you're giving PayPal these free ads, man. You're gonna have to get
This week, you and
Cash
your
App.
G7 allies introduced a plan for an oil
no, you're
price
gonna have
cap
to get YouTube
for
Premium.
Russian exports, which is not yet filled out, and obviously is a response to the high price of gasoline in the United States and around the world. Are you confident that that cap would bring down prices for American drivers? And how long is it fair to expect American drivers to continue to pay a premium because of this war?
Let me hear this. The second part of the question was, would it bring down the price?
Will it bring down prices? And The war has pushed prices up. They could go as high as $200 a barrel, some analysts think. How long is it fair to expect American drivers and drivers around the world to pay that premium for this war?
As long as it takes. So Russia cannot, in fact, defeat Ukraine and move beyond Ukraine.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what do you think about that, Agent X?
I mean, he's basically telling us to settle in for high gas prices. But like I said, they're lining up for war on each side. I think it's I think that's pretty clear.
When you say they're lining up for war on each side, so this is the perspective of an American president. Biden talking about Russia versus Ukraine. What two sides are you talking about? Are you just talking about NATO in general versus
Yeah,
Russia?
NATO in general. Yeah, NATO in general and Russia.
Well, the other thing here is that he's speaking on behalf of the American people, and he's saying that, we have to accept this war in Ukraine is going to cause pain here at home in the form of high gas prices and inflation. So has the American public voted on this issue? I mean, the midterms are coming up, so they'll definitely be voting on this issue then. But, it's not like American voters had a chance to really decide this in 2020 because it wasn't an issue. So, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is that, do you think the vast majority of Americans support paying these
Absolutely
extraordinary
not.
fees?
Nobody except these weirdo liberals. Except these weirdo liberals who are flying these Ukrainian flags. The vast majority of Americans don't want to be involved in Ukraine, and they don't want to see these higher gas prices. And I think you're going to see a real backlash in the midterms if we get there. That sends a signal that, hey, we don't want this war in Ukraine. We don't want to be involved in it. I'm putting this video in the private chat of this guy who's doing the analysis. It's pretty good. It's 15 minutes, but we can kind of scroll through it.
Well, I think there's a logical failure here too, because high gas prices aren't because of the war in Ukraine. It's because of government spending, as we discussed. But
no, I think that there are production issues, right? Because by
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about
by these sanctions on Russian oil, we are having supply issues, and that's causing the market price of a barrel of oil to drive up, particularly with the uncertainty and the fears about supply.
All right, let's
you have to remember the market doesn't just look at raw numbers, right? The market factors in sentiment, it factors in fear, skepticism, expectations. The market really is expectations, and that's why we're seeing higher gas prices.
It's a predictive engine. Yeah. Okay, let's play your boy Neil McCoy. Do you just want to play like the first piece of this or what?
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the channel today, ladies and gentlemen. There have been some pretty disturbing developments in the last 2 days. In fact,
why is he
the last 2
wearing
days we've seen more
a camo jacket, by the way?
More news in regards to Russia, Ukraine, NATO, the West than we have seen in weeks. So let me just summarize a couple of points first and foremost then. I'm going to show you a video. In fact, I'm going to show you a couple of videos where I've taken some of the speeches that have happened over the last couple of days, and I've just condensed, one speech in particular, which is the most key, and it's from the Chief of the Defense Staff General. I'll get onto that in a moment, for the UK. Now, Americans, you should be watching very, very closely as to what's happening, and Canadians and others, very closely as to what's happening here, because very interesting when you look at the parallels, because of course I love history, I'm a student of history, between what happened with previous world wars. It's very interesting what we're seeing right now, and the talk and the commitments that are taking place. So what has been happening over the last couple of days then? Well, two key conferences or summits. One of them is for NATO in Madrid, which is the G7, absolutely key, used to be G8. Of course, Russia no longer part of that. So the G7, so this is a summit taking place in Madrid.
Hey, before we move on with this video, that begs the question, do you remember like kind of like during the Bush era, I think, maybe it was the Obama era, where they put tons of effort into getting Russia to join the G7 or the G8, whatever it was called?
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if you watched Biden's speech, he talked about how things had changed in 11 years, how, NATO used to call Russia an ally, and they used to be invited to the G7 or whatever, G7 summits. I think back then it was called the G8. And then they got expelled because of, I think because they went into Crimea, right?
Was it Crimea? Wasn't Crimea during the Obama era?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I remember, some big effort to get Russia to join. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyways.
No,
Madrid.
hold on. Here we go.
The other one,
on March 24th, 2014, the G7 members canceled the planned G8 summit that was to be held in June, and suspended Russia's membership of the group due to Russia's annexation of Crimea. And they haven't been invited back since.
Okay, so 2014.
Which is quite crucial. It's taken place yesterday and today, and this is a land warfare conference being held in London, UK at the moment. So I want to show you that speech that the general gave. Why I think this is not really getting much press coverage at all, where you would expect it to be receiving huge amounts of press coverage. In fact, I think this is just setting the path for what is going to happen throughout the whole of NATO. But it looks like Britain is leading the way with this. The UK is leading the way for other countries to follow. A couple of other really, really key points there. Rather than you watching 5, 6, 10 videos right now, I'm just condensing everything you need to know about Russia, Ukraine, NATO, etc. into this one succinct video. So a couple of other bits of news then. NATO has just announced they're going to increase from 40,000 troops to 300,000 troops on high readiness in order to...
Huge increase. Almost a tenfold increase. Where are they getting these troops from? The United States, Belgium? Like, what the hell?
I think that they're, from all the member countries.
Right. But it's like, how is this divvied up? Like each country has to, supply 10,000 troops. You know what I mean? So.
Yep.
To fight against Russia if need be. Now, keywords here, if need be.
We will enhance our battle groups in the eastern part of the alliance up to brigade levels and increase the number of our high readiness forces to well over 300,000.
Now remember, there's already 100,000 US troops in Europe.
Okay, so that's what I was getting at. So the US is supplying 100,000 troops that are already in Europe. So that means that all these other member countries are supplying, a smaller number, 20,000 troops.
Yeah, I mean, these other
what
NATO
a joke.
Members, they're always slacking behind. But on kind of a side note, have you seen all these articles coming out recently about how the U.S. military, their recruitment numbers are like way below their quotas?
I have seen that, yeah.
And that's kind of an indicator that Americans are expecting to go to war, right?
Really?
Because everyone joins, everyone joins the military during peacetime because you get, a steady paycheck, you get, your education paid for. It's particularly good for people who come from unstable backgrounds because it gives them stability.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good, you learn actual technical skills that can be applied, even after you leave the military. Like during peacetime, recruitment is way up. It's when there's an expectation of war, recruitment drops down precipitously. And I think that that's what you're seeing. I think Americans are expecting to go to war, not just a civil war within the United States, but they're expecting to go to war overseas.
You mean these recruitment numbers started to drop under Biden, or they
Yeah.
started to drop under Trump?
No, I think that they started to drop this past year.
Yeah.
Like they're
And
way under quotas.
you notice how that has kind of an inverse effect on propaganda, like Hollywood films. You see Top Gun Maverick coming out, all the
Yeah.
other propaganda we're seeing.
I mean, didn't we pull up the contract where the military had like substantial input? There's a contract between Paramount and the military that in exchange for using the military equipment that they had like veto power over the script and creative control.
Yeah, it was like Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was a CIA program to insert.
But it's like Top Gun Maverick was clear propaganda. Like they wouldn't play it in China, right?
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of things like the patch. Remember the Taiwan patch? China had tried to get that taken out because they were financing pieces of the movie.
Yeah,
and then they put it back in.
Tencent.
Yeah, Tencent.
They financed part of the movie, and in the trailer they blurred out the Taiwan flag. There was a patch on Maverick's jacket, and I guess they went back and just left it in. But yeah, no, I mean, you should do a Google search of the recruitment numbers dropping.
Oh, it's a crisis.
Yeah. That's on military.com too.
Yeah.
There's an expectation that we're going to go to war.
In 2021, the number grew up to 196,000 prior to 2020. Department of Defense did not report the total number of TAP eligible service members. Where was this?
Isn't that wild?
It's somewhere between 190. Although Lawrence said the number has been somewhere. Yeah, it is. I'm just trying to find the right article here. Oh, yeah. So, the other inverse impact on this is that they relieve or reduce some of their major requirements for joining the military. In this case, they're dropping this high school diploma requirement, which is fantastic for the failed education systems in this country, particularly like in Louisiana or Mississippi, in inner cities, with unfortunately a lot of these minorities who just drop out of high school, like 50% of these communities where they have really low graduation rates. That's a straight path into the military, of course, and then they get drafted or put into Ukraine or on the front line here in NATO territory. So, oh wow. Minnesota Guard, U.S. military faces recruiting crisis even without these vaccine mandates. Okay.
Yeah, man, it's all a recent thing.
Very, very interesting. Let's continue playing this video. So if there's a recruitment crisis, what that actually will mean is that there's probably going to be a draft coming up.
I think they're going to start. Well,
at the moment,
I mean, we have to actually go to war, right? And then they're going to start conscripting soldiers.
Readiness. But the other big one that happened in the last 24 hours really was Turkey finally gave up its resistance to Finland and Sweden joining
Yep.
NATO. We don't know exactly why, but
yeah, we don't know exactly why. So was Turkey kind of a stooge for Russia here, preventing Finland, Sweden?
I think a little bit, and I think that they had concerns that it would provoke a war with it would be provocative, right? If they admitted Sweden and particularly Finland, where Finland is on the border of Russia and is highly armed to the hilt. So yeah, I mean, there was a obviously there was a backroom deal and Turkey got promised something, but yeah.
Yeah. I think you're onto something there. It's like, what did Erdogan get promised? Probably military planes and a bunch of other shit. Probably just a ton of money. But Erdogan was like not a protege of Putin, but he was definitely a strong arm. Remember, like they tried that coup like 8 or 10 years ago, and he was flying on his personal jet. I mean, there's been a lot of weird shit in Turkey lately, but
the other thing too is I don't know if you've read these are the articles about how these NATO countries have pledged all these weapons and things, and they did it like months ago or like a month ago, 2 months ago, and they're just now finally showing up in Ukraine. So what does that tell you? And they're kind of showing up in unison. I think that it just shows that there's an expectation that the fighting is going to intensify here in the coming, I guess, weeks and months.
President Biden flew in, met with President of Turkey. I don't know what sort of deal was done there, but Turkey now has dropped its resistance, and NATO believes that Sweden and Finland could join within 2 weeks. They said this is going to be the fastest transition ever for entry for members. So
wow, fastest entrance into NATO ever.
Yeah, I was reading that usually it takes like 1 to 2 years.
Oh, for sure.
An invitation.
Yeah, minimum. Probably something more like 3 to 4 years, if not 5 years. So they've cut all the red tape, and they've allowed these countries to immediately join, in part because they want to create a larger boundary in the event that Russia violates their borders, and they can immediately wage war against Russia. And this is all about trying to provoke Russia into a major conflict. And here's another so here's another little piece of this. So I was reading some articles that there's been estimates that Ukraine has lost like 50,000 troops or something, and they say that the level of casualties in this war already has surpassed the number of troops that the UK military even has. I think the UK military has something like 100,000 troops. Maybe it's more like 10,000 troops. I forget, but
well, it's interesting, right? I think these NATO countries have seen that Russian ground forces are not very good, right? They're basically got bogged down by a bunch of old conscripts in Ukraine, and that in a ground war with Russia, the United States and NATO would absolutely blow out Russia. But the issue is Russia has those supersonic missiles. They have nuclear weapons. I don't think they're thinking it out, right? Because the second Putin has already said the second NATO makes a move, he's going to drop a bomb on London. I mean, he's already made that clear. I mean, he came out a few days ago with that. So,
well, he doesn't even need to drop a bomb on London. All he needs to do is have a tactical nuclear weapon explode off the coast of the UK, and it'll create a tsunami that will flood London.
Yep.
So that's what they're really afraid of. And the other issue here is that, like, this isn't about, like, gaining territory in Russia. No one wants land in Russia or really Ukraine. That's why this is kind of the Wild West. It's no man's land in Europe because, yeah, I mean, there are natural resources there, but this is like, I don't know. It's not like
Hey,
really anybody wants to live in Russia or Ukraine.
let me send you this. This just popped up on my screen. It's hilarious. I'm gonna send it to you in the private chat.
I'll pull it up.
Oh man. So I guess Russia is now trying to butter up Texas because Texas is going to secede from the United States.
Oh wow. Crimean Senator Olga Kovidity hopes that other countries will recognize the DPR and LPR after Syria. I do not rule out that the next one who can recognize the independence of the LDNR could be, for example, Texas, since a vote is scheduled for 2023 on the withdrawal of the state from the United States, she wrote in her Telegram channel. Yeah, I don't know the context. She's not really explaining the context there, but it seems like obviously what you're talking about there.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I think I have a very, very good clip for us to play. Let me just double check that it's...
Well, those are odd bedfellows for sure, Texas and Russia.
All right, here you go. Let's play this. I'm putting it in the chat.
Sustainable. What do you say to those families who say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years. This is just not sustainable.
Well, what you heard from the president today was a clear articulation of the stakes. This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
The liberal world order. The liberal world order.
Yeah.
Play that again. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Say to those families who say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years.
Great question.
Just not sustainable.
Well, what you heard from the president today was a clear articulation of the stakes. This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
The liberal world order.
And the future of this new liberal new world order. Yeah, it does sound like the WWE, doesn't it?
Dude, I mean, it's not the new world order anymore. They've changed it to the liberal world order.
So I think that coincides with your argument that, Russia would somehow try and support Texas in seceding from the rest of the United States. But if Texas seceded, you'd have a couple other states probably join them in departing the United States. But the liberal world order, huh? So what does that mean? I mean, does that it's kind of funny, but it's not really funny if this is serious. Okay, so they're trying to rebrand the New World Order as the liberal world order.
Yep.
Do we have enough people in this country to support the liberal world order?
Dude, so let me ask you something. So, do you think we'll see a false flag this weekend?
I mean, the real question is, what are they planning right now in order to create some sort of false flag? I think they always have options on the table. I've seen it.
But do you think that they'll do... sorry, I just saw a meme. Do you think that they'll do a false flag to distract from the fact that people are paying $5 a gallon in gas this weekend?
To try and provoke a conflict in Ukraine and...
or just to distract from the, get people so the news isn't just constantly, oh, 4th of July weekend, everybody's paying $5 a gallon gas. So, food prices are up, 20%, to get that out of the news cycle, they do a false flag.
I don't know. That's a really good question. So there's an argument to be made here that people are on to a lot of these false flags at this point. So maybe not, because people are wise to it, they'll just shut the power off, or they'll engage in some sort of cyber warfare to do something even worse.
That would be an interesting one if there was a cyber attack over the weekend. That would be a very interesting one. Because it would be different, right? Usually they go for the guns, but what if it's a cyber attack or the internet goes dark? They pull the plug. I could see it happening. Hey, dude, check out the meme I just sent you. It's about your favorite subject, the clot shot.
Hold on. We can't talk about that on this.
It doesn't have the name or anything in there.
Well, I'm sure there's some sad stories on the horizon related to people just keeling over. But yeah, let's play the rest of that clip.
That could be within 2 weeks. Okay, so the most important aspect of today's video then, I believe this is the match that is going to ignite everything. So let's go over and watch this video, this absolutely crucial speech that was given by, let me just give you his name. This is General Sir Patrick Sanders, Chief of the General Staff, British Army. He's a new person in post. So let's see what he had to say, and I've condensed this down for you.
How I intend to mobilise the British Army, our regulars, our reservists, and our civilians to deter Russian aggression.
Okay, so the first key point here is he's talking about how he's going to mobilise.
Oh, wow. Yeah, mobilize civilians. That sounds like a draft, Agent X.
Yep, exactly.
So you're pretty close to a lot of this stuff in terms of like the policies that are coming down, seeing certain actions take place. I mean, are you kind of sensing, based on your own intuition, that something is up? That they're planning
I mean,
something?
Something's definitely up, man. We've never I don't think we've ever been, it's been a long time since we've been on the brink of war like this, man. And even during World War II, right, the United States wasn't it tried to remain neutral for a large part of the war, right? And it got drug into it. And the United States was largely appeasing Hitler. But now we actually see the United States actually lining up for war with another global power. I mean, this is unprecedented stuff.
I was going to...
Yeah, no, I feel it.
I feel it too. And I was going to say something here that, the internet back when it was created with packet switching and ARPANET and stuff, it was designed to withstand a direct attack by Russia in the form of a nuclear explosion because of the distributed nature of the internet and all these different nodes, yada, yada, yada. And the Pentagon had paid for the research that went into theories that directly caused the internet to be created. And of course, they paid for the infrastructure between ARPANET and all these different universities. Now, however, and as the internet promulgated, as it continued to grow in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it got to a point where it was so distributed. And then you had Google come along. Now you've had Facebook or Meta, and you've had Amazon. In 2002 to 2005, you had these data centers, and the theories coming out of this corporate structure, the corporate marriage between DARPA and big tech, and they created data centers where they tried to create like huge clouds, as they're known right now.
Yeah.
And what that actually means is, in a warlike situation, large sections of the internet are controlled by these data centers. Of course, we have the DNS system too, that if that goes down, and it's, there's hundreds of redundancies in those connections. But if the data centers go down that control large swaths of the internet as we currently know it, you don't have the same sort of redundancy that you had based on, you know, the premise behind ARPANET. You really don't. So we're way more vulnerable in many different ways, just from a pure infrastructure point of view. So
yeah,
the British Army.
This process, we'll give it a name, Operation Mobilize, will be the
Operation Mobilize.
Yep. Dude, I'm telling you, this is scary stuff, man, and people aren't paying attention. We are literally on the brink of war.
Yeah, that sounds like we're going to get drafted.
And you know, it's not like, you know, we have things going swimmingly here at home. I mean, we're on the verge of a civil war in the United States. And, you know, do you really think a war with Russia over Ukraine is gonna be such an external threat that it's gonna bring this country together? No, it's gonna divide the country more than ever.
Yeah.
primary focus over the coming years.
Now, if you want to look into Operation Mobilize, there is a fair amount of information online about this.
This year alone.
These are trolls or spam.
We have supplied 9,500 anti-tank missiles. We've already provided UK-based training for 650.
Okay, so I think the core argument here is that this Operation Mobilize is really just another way for them saying that they're going to try and start drafting people.
Yep.
Wow.
Exactly, man. They're prepping. I mean...
Wow. Here's another thing I wanted to talk about. So we had this big story about the Supreme Court's decision, West Virginia versus the EPA, that kneecapped the administrative state somewhat. It didn't go as far as many people thought that it would.
I mean, but it could. I mean, you're going to see subsequent decisions and subsequent challenges based on this court decision. And I think you're going to see the administrative bureaucracy of the executive branch absolutely gutted in the next probably 10 years. As long as we can keep Thomas alive, or Clarence Thomas alive, right? I think you have a conservative wing of the court that is absolutely going to gut the administrative bureaucracy of the executive branch.
What will it look like when this gutting takes place?
Well, you're going to see a lot of these, I mean, in this decision, right? The Supreme Court basically said that Congress has to give, express direction to the agency about the policies. And I think you're going to see these federal agencies severely weakened in terms of what they can do in terms of rulemaking and, administrative legislation. And what concerns me is they're going to kick it back to Congress, and Congress is going to do a lot of the legislating and turn over enforcement. They're going to turn these executive agencies more into enforcement agencies, particularly with FedCoin incoming.
I had a couple theories about that, but at first I was like, well, the radical political landscape that we're currently living in doesn't bode well when it comes to even more radical bureaucracies being created. However, with the midterms coming up, you would have the expectation that Congress is going to be held by the Republicans and that it's going to be impossible to pass any new legislation that would be really liberal, really radical. So if anything, I don't know, it seems just like it's going to create a lack of stability in the federal government. It's going to get increasingly frantic. Unfortunately, this doesn't really impact the judicial branch very much, because what you've seen in terms of the administrative state, you've also seen kind of a similar incursion into the everyday life of an American by the judicial branch, not only by the federal government, but by state courts. So I wish that this would be an equally drastic decision with respect to the judicial branch in this country, but of course it's not. There's another theory I had about this, which is, there was a lot of news about this Supreme Court leak. We haven't heard much about this. Who knows if they're going to actually thoroughly investigate, or more importantly,
going down the memory hole, man.
Memory hold it. Yeah, but so I was telling you about, everybody went crazy over this one leak from the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court actually receives thousands of leaks every year from people leaking information to justices or staff within the Supreme Court to try and get whatever they want, up to the Supreme Court so that it can be reviewed. And my thinking on that is, so if you have these reverse leaks to the Supreme Court by other federal agencies, does Clarence Thomas know something that the rest of us don't? Has he tried to, organize this conservative wing of the court around whatever information he's receiving implicitly through these reverse leaks?
I guess it's possible. I haven't given it much thought. Well, hey, hold on. I'll be right back.
If you're just tuning in, please do subscribe to the channel and like the video, of course. There's another big set of stories on UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten. Probably about these media contracts. The Big Ten network is generating around $580 million per year. So if you were to divide that amongst each school, that's about $40 to $50 million. However, back in the day, the Pac-10, or how it's known now, the Pac-12, you had schools within close proximity on the West Coast, and it was all about travel and travel expenses. And you would have to think that the NCAA's rule, in terms of the NIL, name, image, likeness rule, has also played into the decision by these schools to join the Big Ten. It's not 10 schools anymore, so I'm not sure why they call it the Big Ten, but it's always been called the Big Ten, so they still call it the Big Ten. And the real question, I think, is why USC and why UCLA have bolted the Pac-12 for the Big Ten. Is this about money? Is this about politics? Is this about a combination? And my gut instinct at first was these schools are in liberal areas in LA, so California, USC, and UCLA. And with the lockdowns, these football programs weren't able to produce the same amount of revenue. And ticket sales have already been decreasing, but they really started to plummet during the pandemic. So they're not making as much money off just raw ticket sales, and they're making more money off the media networks, and the Big Ten has built that up. But is this about boosters? What is this about, Agent X?
I don't know. It's interesting, right? It comes down to money, right? The Big Ten is about to sign a massive deal with Fox for its football, right? Or mostly it's football, right? It's football and basketball. And the Pac-12 is the lowest earning conference in terms of television revenue. But it's interesting, right? The the Big Ten, right? It's an academic conference, right? They're all AAU schools. Um, they're very snobby when it comes to academics. Um, and it's interesting, right? The Pac-12 has a different the institutions in the Pac-12 are a little bit different. I mean, a lot different culturally because they're very West Coast liberal institutions. Um, and it's kind of surprising that UCLA and USC were the first schools to make the move to the Big Ten, considering the Big Ten is a Midwestern conference, and there's really only a couple schools in liberal states. You have Rutgers and Minnesota, and that's pretty much it. Every place else is in a conservative state. So you have two schools, that are kind of hoity-toity,
Oh, I
liberal
forgot about
institutions.
Rutgers. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you're going to have USC flying all the way to New Jersey to play
yeah,
Rutgers?
yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. You know what I see? It's going to turn into like, instead of these conferences, Big Ten, Pac 12, whatever, the SEC, it's going to turn into just like a regular NFL type situations where there's going to be no conferences, maybe two conferences like Eastern, Western, NFC,
Yeah.
AFC kind of thing. But there's going to be overall, I think they're going to at some point merge all these revenues together. But the Big Ten network is pretty sophisticated. It's advanced. I remember when they launched the Big Ten network, they stole a bunch of ESPN anchors and reporters. And they've invested a lot of money into publicity around it. And I think also this NCAA rule around allowing athletes to make money off their own image and likeness, the NIL rule, has also expanded some of the ability for these media networks to pay athletes for interviews or whatever they're doing to get exclusive information about big games and so forth. But you have two problems. One is the American public, especially football, have lost interest. I don't
Yeah, the
watch any
interest in
football. I don't watch sports.
well,
I used
interest
to.
in sports for young people is on the decline big time. They want to play video games and other things like that.
Yeah, well, that's another excellent point about these gaming leagues. Is this meant to deter or compete with maybe what they see as a rise in college gaming leagues? I've never heard of a college gaming league, but it seems like, you know, video game leagues or drone racing has also kind of like it's on the back burner a little bit, but it's also like, increasing in its awareness among young people. And you would think that the next generation of college students are going to be more interested in playing video games than they are going to be to play football or watch football or go to games. Obviously that's not where they're getting a lot of their money from, but it's these boosters. But as these baby boomers die off and the money that comes with it, you're going to see these media networks lose legitimacy. You're going to see a decline in revenue overall. And so that's going to erode all of this conference structure. And eventually they'll have to share or merge revenues. And that's where you have this sort of like global NCAA league, crop up. Yeah, it's interesting though. So what are your thoughts on this NIL and the NCAA?
Well, before I get to that, the value of sports rights, TV rights, they are going up because the value of live TV is the inventory is so important to keep these networks alive, even with declining viewership. So, it's pretty interesting. I think you're going to see a lot of consolidation. I think you're probably going to see two major conferences with the SEC and the Big Ten, and then probably the Big 12 and the ACC being kind of power conferences. It's
Yeah, it's
interesting though,
definitely going to come down to the SEC.
But like I said, I just found it interesting that you had these two ultra liberal schools go and join this Midwest conference purely over
Yeah, I
money.
was stunned when I heard this morning. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like forever, USC and UCLA have been part of the Pac-12, and
Yeah,
to even like broach the subject of them traveling to play football games or whatever in the Midwest is like, oh my God. And now you bring in Rutgers, and mind you, when Rutgers joined the Big Ten 5 years ago, I believe, that was stunning news at the time because you were thinking of the,
well, they just wanted they had the Big Ten Network, and they just wanted that New York TV market. Rutgers has
oh,
always
I
been
suppose, yeah, that's
a,
true.
a doormat. That's why they went after Maryland, because they wanted the DC market. So I don't
It's a
know.
consolidation.
It's interesting. But in terms of NIL, man, it's ruining college sports. I mean, we can get into it on another time because the chat is getting mad at us about talking about sports ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not here for sports chat.
No.
Well, I don't think it's really about sports chat. I think it's also about. There's another argument to be made here that this is about social media and big tech. And interestingly, a lot of big tech and social media obviously is located in California, yet you have these California schools trying to play in the Midwest. A lot of these athletes are trying to make money off TikTok and Instagram. So
Yeah. It was interesting. I was watching. What was I watching? I was watching a TV show, and there was a product for, I don't know, maybe charcoal or something. I don't know, but they had a TikToker on there on the TV
really,
commercial
for charcoal.
it was like charcoal or something like that, but it was a TikToker doing the endorsement.
No
Um,
way.
yeah, it was
Well,
really weird.
Was it someone who had like expertise in that particular domain? Like barbecue
uh,
or something?
it was like the angry
Wow.
TikToker or something. I don't know, but you see it like these endorsements are moving away from sports stars. They've completely moved away from movie stars, right? Pretty much the only time you
Yeah.
see a movie star is when you see a makeup ad, and even those are kind of going away. But now you're seeing TikTokers and influencers do these endorsements rather than sports stars and celebrities. So I don't know. It's interesting.
And that also means that a lot of this ad money is moving, well, it's already obviously moved to the internet, but who is it going to ultimately? Is it going to these social media, quote, stars? They're not stars. I'm just saying that ironically. But interesting. I hadn't thought of that. So, wow. Okay. All right. Well, beyond these crazy stories about USC and UCLA, do we have any other news to talk about before we consider?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I was thinking about just doing a short show tonight because I haven't seen much out there today. I think the big news was USC and UCLA. I don't think we're going to get any call-ins tonight, but
do we have any protesters at the Supreme Court still protesting Roe v. Wade?
not a single one, man. Not a single one.
Memory hold.
Dude, I told you everybody would forget about it, man. There was a story out today that the DOJ, or sorry, the not the DOJ, the Department of Defense was going to perform abortions even in
I
states
did
where
see
it's been
that.
outlawed.
Yeah, so we have. That's kind of a coup.
Faggot Tim Pool was trying to say it's going to lead to a civil war.
Oh, it is a little bit of a coup, but a very, 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 very minor coup. Well, what do you think about that?
I don't know. Don't have my. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I don't think they've done it yet.
Well, I think the military operates under different healthcare rules, and it takes time for all of these decisions to get absorbed by their command structures. And until that point, they can kind of operate under existing protocol. But until, these rules get updated, and probably takes 6 months to a year, right? Then it changes. So I think it's kind of like jumping the gun to say that, oh, well, these bases, if they're in Texas Texas abortion, well, yeah, I guess it would be Texas. So if abortions are illegal in Texas and you have a military base there, but yet they're still performing abortions, I'd be more concerned about why these enlisted women or officers would be getting abortion, or getting pregnant, right? But
more distractions, man.
Yeah, it's
I don't
a
know,
little early for Tim Pool to say that.
Yeah, he's
He's not logically thinking about it, but of course he's saying that to get attention and to become like an extremist.
He has one shtick, right? Civil War and Red Wave. That's his shtick. And what he does is he doesn't do any independent reporting, right? He goes out and he finds a news article and then makes a 30-minute video ranting about it, doing the with the same talking points of Civil War, Red Wave, Civil War, Red Wave, Trump, Trump, Trump. And it really gets old. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you see his viewership dropping, right? He used to get, his live streams used to get 80, 90,000. Now they're getting 30, 40,000, and they're on a slow decline. I think people are getting tired of the same repetitious, talking points. I mean, there's no independent thought or analysis. It's just drumming up people.
Yeah, to be honest, I hadn't watched much Tim Pool until the last few days when you sent me a few items to look at. And mind you, he seems articulate and he seems like he's a good presenter to some degree. I personally am not a big fan of it, but, here and there it's okay. But yeah, he doesn't unpack these things and logically look at them. More importantly, based on his history of going to the Occupy protests, maybe that's kind of his bread and butter, is going out on the streets and kind of getting in this radical group.
Butter, right?
Yeah, and he's got away from that. And that's usually when people have decline in whatever they're trying to get, in this case, viewership. So if he moves back to that, sort of like getting more into the crowds, going back out in the street and doing that reporting. Here's another thing about Tim Pool. So he's tried to jib up a lot of drama about these, quote, swatting events that have taken place, and just giving all of that stuff attention will just invite more people to do it because they're getting publicity off of it. They get to see the person aggravated and annoyed by it. And, for, Alex Jones it's almost like probably a quarterly thing for him. So he gets those kinds of swatting events once every 3 to 4 months. He never talks about it.
No.
Again, it's like the more attention you give it, the more you're inviting in terms of chaos. But he's doing it. So what does it say about Tim Pool? It says that he wants attention. He's doing this to get more attention, to drum up this whole chaos thing. And ultimately, people are getting sick of it.
Yeah, no. He's definitely a catastrophizer, but this swatting stuff that he keeps pointing, I kind of tend to think, if it's really happening, he's trying to draw attention to it, so it keeps happening. So it's drama, right? Drama brings in clicks. But there is also the theory that it's fake, which is a very good theory, considering
possible.
He's trying to get clicks. He's trying to drum up drama. And he hasn't been the most honest person in his reporting either, So, yeah, I mean, I think you have to take Tim Pool with a grain of salt, particularly, the the intellectual lightweights he has. I mean, Luke Zukowski, he's pretty good, but those other guys he has on the show, I mean, just terrible. Some of the stuff that Ian says, I mean, it's like like he's brain dead. Like he wants all source code to be open source. He's like, you should just open source Twitter. Well, I mean, like it's not hard to make a fucking
It's not
Twitter.
reasonable. It's not
No, and
reasonable.
it's not reasonable. It's stupid. It's a stupid argument.
There are trade secrets. There's private, confidential information, including, abilities to hack Twitter and get user information. I mean, that could have very dangerous implications for society in general. So just open source everything is not a valid argument. If someone came to me and they're like, yeah, we want to open source code for whatever platform, that I've worked on in the past, I would start laughing and try and lock the door. So it would be like someone coming to your house and saying, we want to see everything that's in your house immediately. Let's go and see it. And we also want to take pictures, and we want documents. Be like, that's not reasonable. A, I don't have time, and B, I wouldn't want to show you. So yeah, it just is not like thought out. These people aren't thinking through every single logical branch here. But in terms of like Tim Pool, do you think he's reading from a script?
I think some of it he is, right? I mean, he definitely has talking points. And there is also the theory that he's controlled opposition.
Well, people have said to us that we're controlled opposition, and that's actually a valid argument in my case, with all the crazy stuff they've tried to thrown at me in various state and federal courts. But from exposing some of these predators, including people who were at January 6th, embedded in staff there. But that's a whole different thing. Is Tim Pool controlled opposition? I don't think so. I mean, he's just a random guy on the internet. I mean, what purpose is that serving?
Well, he did kind of rise to viewership very quickly on YouTube, right?
Okay,
he has multiple channels, and like they had hundreds of thousands of, like they didn't grow naturally, right? They had hundreds of thousands of subscribers in a matter of like a couple months, right? And then he started the live stream, and he was immediately getting, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 viewers at a time. And, that's just not natural. I think he was definitely being propped up by YouTube. Is he controlled opposition? That's kind of evidence that he is when you're being propped up by YouTube like that. So,
true. Yeah.
I think you have to consider it.
And the fact that they're talking about open sourcing some of these algorithms, which would point to how they're amplifying certain messages. In this case, they're amplifying certain people like Tim Pool or other people, liberals like the Young Turks, who I can't stand, by the way. But the other part about open sourcing some of these algorithms, a lot of this is just pure artificial intelligence predictive models. And to understand what messages it intends to amplify and what messages it's not, it's hard to do without actually running that software in a production environment and having access to all the data that, in this case, YouTube and Google has, which would be impossible. So even here's actually a really fundamental point about this. Open sourcing these algorithms, especially when it comes to Google, is not going to give you what you want, because what they have is data that they're ingesting into these AI models. The ingestion engines and the sophisticated aggregation techniques that they have in place are beyond what even 99% of nation states have. Probably only China and the US would have access to that level of data. And probably really realistically only the United States. So you're never going to be able to determine what messages YouTube and Google is intending to amplify without subpoenas to executives in those various domains. And I think that's kind of a key characteristic that Tim Pool is missing here.
Yo, dude, I think we should wrap it up for the night. It's a short stream. We can do a long stream tomorrow night.
All right, so yeah, we'll probably do a longer stream tomorrow.
Let's do our proper stream tomorrow night.
Do a proper stream. We'll see you this weekend as well. Have a great July 4th. Before we close it down, is there anything else you would like to talk about, Agent X?
No, that's all I got right now.
All right, well, subscribe and like the video. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, bitch, hand me the bat.